please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Trish.
Mrs. Brew?
Here.
Mr. Kramer?
Here.
Mr. Menegini?
Here.
Mr. Oja?
Here.
Mr. Hawes?
Here.
We're going to move on to the approval of the agenda, but before we do that, we are going to move number 12 to number 7 on communications. With that change, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda as noted. Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes. Regular meeting of May 6, 2019, special meeting of May 7, 2019, and special meeting of May 13, 2019. Do you want them separate, or can we do them together?
I think do them separate under the circumstances.
Okay. Do I have a motion on the regular meeting of May 6, 2019?
I'll make a motion on the meeting of May 6, 2019.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Move on to special meeting of May 7, 2019.
Make a motion on special meeting of May 7th, 2019. Support.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Special meeting of May 13, 2019.
I'll make a motion, special meeting of May 13th, 2019. Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
We'll move on to the approval of the manifest 2019-11. Scott, you have any questions?
I have nothing tonight.
Brett?
I have none.
Lee?
A couple comments. I'd like to congratulate Trevor Anderson, who got the $1,000 2019 WPPI Public Power Scholarship. Every year, how many years have they been doing that now, Ray?
Oh, gosh, yeah, it's been 6 or 7.
It's nice of our WPPI partners to do that. Question under buildings and grounds. Second item there, energy control and design ordered new valve actuator installed. What, is that something above and beyond our high vac people, or?
Yeah, that's something that our heating and control people, that we bought the system.
Oh, from?
Yeah, it's a programmed valve.
Okay. And then I also see that we did get reimbursed from the state for plowing out the snow removal along US 2 for Norway Eye Care and the bank. That's all I have.
Jeremy? I have none either. Do I have a motion on the manifest?
I'll make a motion to approve manifest number 2019-11 in the amount of $557,899.16.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Yes. All right, I'll have Ray respond to the questions from the last manifest.
Yeah, there were 2 questions publicly on the last manifest, which I gave to council in the report. The first was welding. There were 2 items on the agenda, or on the manifest. The one in question is for $212. That one was a screen that we had built for the catch the rags that come in. It's kind of a pre-screening at our grit removal, and because of an unusual situation we have in the system with the 48-inch line, actually it's a 72-inch line that's down. There's like a 2-block section, 1 to 2 block section, that we get slugs of rags that come through there on heavy rain, which overtakes the normal design of that basket, so we added an extension to that. So that was that. And then the other was shipping question. for $168. That was a spectral analyzer that we had to ship back and get serviced. So we shipped that back. It also has insurance on it. That's probably why it's a little higher on the shipping charge.
Okay. Anyone wishing to address the council on an agenda item shall do so now at the podium. State your name and address for the record. Move on to communications. Number 7.
Okay, this item was brought up at the last council meeting. The council did decline this request at the last meeting. However, when I informed the department, it was the electrical department, it was for the compact excavator, there was a specific request from the department to bring this back and ask for council's reconsideration. Again, the mini excavator at that meeting, there was questions as to why we need to have an additional excavator. At that time, we really didn't have the answers. We do have a large excavator, if people see it out at Marion Park. The current trencher unit that we have for underground service has a little bucket on it that's used in the trenching process. But the new trencher has a reel attachment that we replace the bucket with a reel attachment, and that's a safety issue too. As you're trenching, you want to be able to spool the wire as we go, and in our current activity, we have to have a separate trailer come with, and it's quite an operation, but we do need a small bucket in order to start and terminate all the underground activities. We've been looking at that other excavator as well. Some questions came up as to how much operation we get. I tried getting a hold of the department to find out, not the electric, but the DPW to find out how many hours are on that piece of equipment, and I could not get a hold of those guys. But I do know that we don't really have that many hours on it. I believe we bought that piece of equipment in '95 for a specific project, and we don't even have a trailer to trailer it. We actually contract local contractor to come in and trailers to move it for us, because we just don't have a trailer, that piece of equipment. It makes more sense for us to have a small unit that we can handle ourselves, whether it's for water projects, for park projects. It just makes more sense. I did ask Tim to come to the meeting tonight, and Tim, you can give, why don't you give a brief confirmation explanation as to your request.
I think you pretty much summed it up. I mean, with the new trencher we got the reel carrier on the front, and we really have no way of digging without a mini excavator, and the mini excavator's really nice to have around to get in between houses and stuff. It's nice and small and doesn't rip up the yards like a big backhoe or excavator would.
With the service line issues we're going to have coming forward with the new lead copper rules, we anticipate also some service line work in the water department. We also know that we're in and out of the parks doing different projects, and so that particular piece of equipment is more user-friendly for us than a large excavator. Our intent is to sell the large excavator. I think that we'll be able to get a pretty good market value for that piece of equipment. So I'm going to open it up now for council comments, questions. I do apologize for bringing it back this way, but it was a specific request from the department that we ask you to reconsider.
You want to move the bucket with a reel handler? Why are we also buying a reel trailer then? Because you needed that to haul the reels. Now you're using the trencher to haul the reels.
I'm not buying a reel trailer.
Isn't that what that small trailer was for?
No, the trailer that you guys approved is to haul the new trencher, and then the ditch witch trailer we have right now, I'm going to use that to haul the mini excavator. Because the new trencher won't fit on the ditch witch trailer. That's why I had to go with a bigger trailer.
And most of your new construction is going to be underground?
Yeah, about 80%.
About 80% of it?
Is all
Wherever you possibly can, you'll be going underground.
correct.
How many requests, Tim, how many requests do you think and this may be an unfair question, just to ask you off the cuff, because I didn't ask you ahead of time, probably should have anticipated this question, but how many underground requests do we get changing services during the course of the year?
Well, every new service is always underground. And like when we were down WPA Road and rebuilding that, a lot of the customers requested that we put underground in, and they switched their services over.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting more requests to go underground as opposed to the aerial.
But how many areas, I mean, do you really go where it's that tight that you can't fit the backhoe in there? It's not a huge piece of equipment. It's a sizable piece, but it's not a huge piece of equipment.
Well, the backhoe's really not ours, it's the street department, so they're using it most of the time.
Right, but the street department will be using the mini excavator if it's approved, so
Right.
the equipment goes between.
But the backhoe rips up yards pretty good and stuff, you know, and it digs a lot bigger hole. It's,
What's the difference in the size of the bucket?
I think what is that bucket on there, Brian, 18 inch? Or 12?
Either 18 or 24 foot,
Yeah, I think what is on a backhoe, 36 or 30?
right, 30 or 36 on that one. The big advantage of Tim is the rotation, 360-degree rotation with a backhoe, you're limited. You can always position it for an excavator, you could, take dirt to the front, put it right behind you.
Well, we do have a lot of new construction planned. But I'm still kind of hesitant to spend any more money, even though it was budgeted. But because of our situation down at the hydro, I'm still a little leery about it. But if you need it and you're going to use it, I'm for it.
Would the selling of the Cabelco defer the cost of the Mini? Roughly?
I don't know what you'd get for the other excavator.
Do you know that offhand?
The 150 Komatsu that you guys currently have?
Correct. The
Yeah,
one that's-
Komatsu, I'm sorry,
Grand
yes.
Park.
What is that, 90 high?
94. 94.
It's a 94.
94. It'd cover most of it. You'd probably get somewhere between 20 and 25 grand for that thing.
Okay.
Maybe up close to 30. I don't know how many hours, depends on hours under carriage, without actually
Okay.
doing an appraisal on it. But typically that vintage,
Any other questions? No? If not, is there a motion?
I make a motion that the John Deere be approved for the purchase of a John Deere 26G compact excavator for a price not to exceed $34,851.
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
No,
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. We'll move on to number 8, ordinance number 432, Norway Area Zoning Ordinance Amendment. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, this is a global ordinance amendment. Planning Commission has been working on this amendment for 8 months or so. On a global amendment, we go from one front to back. We take staff comments based on some issues that we receive during the course of the year for any problem areas. Repetitive variations is one area. I know the ZBA has sent back a couple of issues for us to implement in this revision, and we made those changes in the ordinance revision. There's a few setback changes. We've had some issues with sheds and setbacks, fences, setbacks on property lines. So we addressed those. Height of accessory structure, that was one that we pointed out early on, where we had a lot of variations. People are going to 16-foot high instead of 14-foot high garages. So we addressed that. And then there were a number of clerical type amendments that we're requesting. We went through, we held a public hearing, first of the month, at the Planning Commission, which satisfies our public hearing requirement for both the city and the township. The township brought this to their meeting on May 13th and approved the revision or the amendment. So it's council's prerogative right now to review the zoning and hopefully approve.
At the public hearing that they had, Ray, did anybody show up?
We had one resident showed up and added her comments, I think, in support. She had been coming for quite a few of the meetings, so it really wasn't a global question. There were a couple things that she helped us on, and we appreciated her help. But outside of that, no, there was no other.
Well, I know of all the committees we have, that's the most frustrating one and very, very time-consuming. And I know these people spent many, many hours on it, and I was on there for a while, and I got out.
Oh, you got paroled or what?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm all for whatever they want. If that's what their recommendation is, I'll follow along with them.
I'd like to thank the zoning committee too for putting all the time and hard work into this. I know it's time-consuming, and just so they know the council does appreciate the time and effort they put into this.
Grant, is this kind of generic repeal language going to be sufficient? Because it's just, all ordinance or portions thereof which are in conflict with this ordinance are hereby repealed. Is it truly generic as that, or should we be stating the ordinance that's being repealed?
We're redoing all of them. I was looking at the actual ordinances themselves. I saw, I was going to ask City Manager Anderson about potential reference to it, using two different dates. I think if we just, it's references ordinance number 432 and it references all of it. In ordinance 421, I think in the recommendation language, it should reference that the repeal of ordinance 421, when replaced with ordinance 432, should be referenced specifically versus the broader language that's contained therein.
That's what I was thinking, that's what I would add.
Yep, I agree. Also, since now I'm talking a little bit, just a quick question. I was looking through, because it seems like it's always a hot button issue. Whenever we have sign issues that pop up, it seems like signs are always an issue between rummage sales, political signs, or graduation parties. City Manager, I was just looking at page 13, section 1015, the exempt signs. It's talking about the political signs, and it says those are exempt from getting a permit, which I think is in compliance with the current state of the law. And it says, cannot be erected 45 days prior to the election and removed within 10 days after. Then I was looking back to page 6, where it references signs for regulations in residential areas on section 1, page 6, down at the bottom, and it says 60 days down there. I don't know if that was, if they wanted, continuity, both, 60 and 60, or it meant to be 45 and 40, or if there was an intentional difference between the two. I just wanted to catch it before we went ahead and approved the language, or if there was a reason.
What was the first page that you referenced?
Page 13 at the bottom.
13, okay.
When it references exempt signs, and it has the 45 days. And then on page 6, it says temporary signs, 60 days before the election.
I believe, from my understanding of the statute governing, or I don't know if it's a statute or an appeal or policy with political, quote-unquote, freedom of speech political signs, that it has its own definition. If you notice under page 6, the intent of that language, one temporary sign, and so on and so forth, it does say election day, 60 days prior to an election date, until 10 days after. Probably should be consistent with 45. I think I took that language from another ordinance that I was looking for language to deal with this.
Well, also what I'm trying to maybe look at the intention. The section 1004 on page 6 is as to private residential areas, my home, your home, et cetera, referencing the 60, and then the exempt signs, I think maybe is referring to the public property.
Yes.
More so.
More so? Yeah, maybe
And so
that's-
it narrows it down to the 40, if you want to put it on public property, it's 45 days, but it's
In residential
private,
areas.
it's 60. I was just pointing that out just because it's something, if it's not the continuity or continuous, sometimes it just creates more problems. But if it's the zoning, if it's the planning commission's intention to do that, I respect their work, and they put a ton of time into this and put a lot of thought into it as well. I just thought I'd ask, and I just noticed the difference in times. And
This is language that was taken from other examples dealing with this issue, so I assume it probably went through the same legal scrutiny.
just caught my eye with the different timeframes.
Yeah, and a little bit
confusion.
confusing, that's
Right.
what I,
just trying to maybe make sure, for the public too, to hear it, and I have some questions about it.
Yeah, I do think the intent is separating the public areas versus the residential areas, the residential zoning areas, where you typically get most of the complaints that are out of the residential area.
so their intent is to make it 15 days less?
No, I think their intent was to leave it as it's written. I mean, we went through that.
Okay.
But I'm just trying to respond maybe to where Attorney Carlson was going with the question. I mean, that's definitely can be an area down the road if we just find that to be, completely botched. or-
It just seems like it's always a cause for confusion, and people get confused about it, and defensive sometimes too, and I just, like I said, just the two different timeframes jumped out at me, and it seems like it's always difficult from city council all the way up to governor, trying to decide when you can do some of these things, and also respect the beauty of our area and the tranquility of our properties, so.
And the mix-up, because a lot of people are gonna put them out, and they're gonna, because that's what the law is, or whatever, is the 60 days, and then people are gonna say, well, I thought it was 60 days. So you might get a little more,
It does specify residential areas, as opposed to say along the highway. And it probably gives them an additional 15 days because you're in that residential area and it's you get permission from the people and you can put them out,
so for the 45 days is for the highways?
Yeah, it would be outside, it would be in the business districts, it would be outside the residential areas.
I think it should be the same, but I wasn't there to work on it, so. Any other questions? If not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that ordinance 432 be approved, but with the change of the referencing of ordinance 421 as being repealed.
So your motion would be to repeal Norway area zoning ordinance number 421 and to adopt and approve new proposed ordinance number 432.
I just wanted to make sure, because it's in here as that vague language, that it was changed on there.
So in the first sentence, an ordinance to repeal ordinance 421 and not amend.
Right.
Okay.
Because that's what we're doing. That was
That's
the
fine.
intent as far as I understood.
Under repeal, all ordinances of portions thereof are hereby repealed. So under Article 3, it does repeal. I'm not, there's a motion on the floor.
Do I have a second?
I'll support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
We'll move on to the approval of State of Wisconsin Managed Forest Law Service Agreement.
I mentioned this earlier to council, that we actually were informed by the state of Wisconsin. We're doing a cutting over on the Wisconsin properties pursuant to the Wisconsin Managed Forest Law. We are currently in the program for the 350 acres that we have over by the hydro, across the river from the hydro. And we're required to do managed cutting on that property on a prescribed schedule. We were informed this past year that as we move forward with our cutting, which is going to happen this summer, that our plan is up in 2019. And our forester also, Brock Van Oss, he also was aware of that and contacted me about it. He said that as he was working on this cutting, that he could pretty easily work on getting the update for the state of Wisconsin to extend our program. He gave me a price not to exceed $1,200. I think he's done a fine job on getting this cutting done and for us, handling this and managing this for us. Really haven't had to do a whole lot of work myself. I think he's managed it quite a bit. So, and I think that $1,200, I know I've had over the course of years, different foresters from Wisconsin, you know, when they know we're in the program. I'm just, since he's been working on this and familiar with it, I think we're going to probably get a pretty good deal on having him just update it. So I'm asking council's consideration just to approve the Van Oss Forestry Services to provide the update for $1,200.
I'm fine with just going with Van Oss again because we've been satisfied with his service, and I don't think on this one we need to bid this out. Personally, I'm satisfied with just going forward.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that the State of Wisconsin Managed Forest Law Service Agreement with Van Oss Forestry Services be approved for a price not to exceed $1,200.
Support.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Move on to ordinance number 433.
Okay, this particular ordinance is coming before council, and, you know, as we've discussed ordinances in the past, different ordinances, we've used different methods for first reading, second reading. In our charter does not specify for specific readings of ordinances. It only specifies what to do after we pass the ordinance. This particular ordinance, though, amendment, is specific to the new fireworks law. Remember back in 2012, we passed an ordinance based on a 2011 law that the state of Michigan put forward that allowed fireworks in the state of Michigan. And so we put together an ordinance at that time, ordinance 399, that reflected the rules and regulations of specifically the state ordinance. This past year, the legislators passed an amendment to PA 256, and the amendment is specific within now our amendment to ordinance 399. The amendment is stated is that they basically changed the dates that are allowed for, dates and times allowed for fireworks. The new dates are December 31st until 1 a.m. on January 1st, the Saturday and Sunday immediately preceding Memorial Day until 11:45 p.m. on each of those days, June 29th to July 4th until 11:45 p.m., July 5th, if that date is a Friday or Saturday, until 11:45 p.m., the Saturday and Sunday immediately preceding Labor Day until 11:45 p.m. on each of those days. The dates were modified based on complaints around the state on the times that the fireworks are being extended or expended, and I think that these dates and times reflect some of those complaints. We're also added, and I handed that out, additional language pursuant to Public Act 256 of 11, the penalty of violating this ordinance shall be a civil fine of $1,000 for each violation of the ordinance and no other fine or sanction. A remittance of $500 of the fine collected under this ordinance shall go to the City of Norway Police Department. So it specifically states under the state law that it's a $1,000 fine, and of that $1,000, $500 goes to the city. That's new. There was no language in the previous ordinance, I believe, or previous state law that provided for any remittance back to the enforcing agency. So because this is a pretty straightforward ordinance, it's an ordinance to follow the state law regarding fireworks. I'm printing this out on the dais today for council approval so that we can have this prior to Memorial Day, and also it's pretty straightforward as far as what the state says that we all need to do in our ordinances. I don't know, Grant, if you had any comment as such?
I think you've covered most of it, City Manager Anderson. I think this was discussed down at the Lansing seminar I was at a few months ago. The city sent me down to pay for the cost of the seminar. The intention of the lawmakers was to both give a little more leeway as far as the timing of it, but also tighten it up. There's been a lot of complaints that the fireworks have kind of gotten out of control and gone beyond what the intent of the legislature was to celebrate certain holidays. So they did beef up both the fine, the sanction itself, and also specifically put in there some language that part of that fine specifically goes back to the agencies that are enforcing and having to deal with some of these issues. So this seemed to be very much a across the state issue from what I heard and what Mr. Anderson and I heard when we were at that conference. And they took action to address this, and this, I think, has been universally adopted by most of the municipalities across the state.
What's going to happen to places that celebrate on the weekends? You know, like we always have our 4th of July parade on the 4th of July, but other places, you know, or say we had changed ours to the weekend, is that going to affect them?
Well, the way the language reads is June 29th until July 4th, so it expands it out a little bit on that regard. And then July 5th of that date is a Friday or a Saturday until 11:45 p.m. If you have it, I suppose, outside of those parameters, that could be an issue.
Couldn't though a municipality, if they chose to add another date, they can't restrict it more than this, but could they allow them on another date? Because I remember when we went through this before, the first time we passed this, we couldn't be more restrictive than the state law. That was specifically spelled out, but could a municipality in that case be looser than the state law?
Well, that's what I was wondering.
Well, I think, though, the intent of the state law is to deal with residential fireworks. If we have the Christmas parade, and we let off fireworks, but they're commercially let off. I mean, we have trained people, and we let them off. So I don't think that falls under the law, does it?
It would be a separate, you start talking about commercial displays, that's different.
That's different.
But I mean, just say,
And this references no person.
you did the regular 4th of July fireworks on a Saturday. You know, well, then you know the kids want to light off their fireworks, usually when the big fireworks are. Or you get rain delays. Just wondering.
The Christmas one pulls up a bigger issue because this past year we had it on December 20th or around there, and it says December 31st.
And that's a commercial firework, so
Yeah.
it doesn't fall within this law. As far as like the holiday with residential fireworks, I mean, they're okay on the 4th and the 5th. So I don't think that there'll be an issue. I'm not thinking there should be an issue.
You don't see any issues, Mr. President?
There's always unintended issues that can arise when you start looking at ordinances and state laws. You know, but if the city has their 4th of July parade a week before, and it's outside of those outside of those dates, no person shall light off the fireworks outside of the dates in which we specified. The 29th until basically July 5th of that day is a Friday or Saturday. So if we had our parade outside that range and individuals or people were lighting off fireworks, it could cause issues
Well,
with
but
this ordinance.
then couldn't we also do like we do with the sign ordinance now for yards rummage sale weekend? Do a
Suspend
special
it for the
thing just to
weekend.
suspend it. If something like that were to happen, just suspend it for that time and then on that particular year.
I'm not sure, I guess I'm not sure what the issue is completely, but, you know, reading this, what they're saying is that if July 4th falls on a Wednesday, then people aren't supposed to light off fireworks on Thursday. They're probably thinking that, well, people have to go back to work on Thursday, and so, you know, they don't want them to be firing off fireworks during workday. If the 5th, what day after 4th of July, is on a Friday or Saturday, they're probably thinking, well, that's extended into the weekend, so we'll give them the extra time after the holiday. It looks, the Saturday and Sunday preceding Memorial Day, they're allowing that weekend for people to shoot fireworks, because it's a weekend, so they're probably thinking, well, you know, they're trying to stay away from the fireworks being let off during, you know, somebody's trying to sleep, they have to go to work the next day, you know, so they want them to, they should
But
have
I'm
that
gonna,
at 45.
what I'm thinking of is we could, if it fell, if you, using the example of the 4th was a Wednesday, we could do a thing that you're saying, okay, we're suspending the ordinance on Saturday. So you get Friday and Saturday to do your fireworks.
Jeremy, to answer your question, the way the statute reads is if a council or a government decides to restrict the hours of firework use or setting off, we can do so, or we can extend it, but we cannot prohibit it on those
Right.
dates.
So you could, if a
special
municipality, if a municipality, say on the city anniversary,
Right.
allowed it every year,
We-
they
we-
could add that date into their list of acceptables.
And we
Under
can
this
suspend that,
statute,
we can add that.
we cannot say fireworks cannot be lit on June 29th until July 4th. We can't say no fireworks those days. They're protecting your ability to use fireworks on those days. Doesn't say you can't expand it if you chose to do so.
Right, that's,
And so we can deal with it a lot like we do with our sign ordinance, you know, if we expand it or suspend it, or we deal with it on a case-by-case basis.
If there's no other questions, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, ordinance 433 be approved, and the staff be directed to make publication and notice as per charter. Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Move on to approval special events application, music in the park.
Okay, this particular application is pretty straightforward. The music in the park has been going on now for a number of years. It's been growing in popularity. We're getting more and more participation from residents dancing and enjoying themselves at these events. I think it's been a great thing for the downtown during the summer. And I want to start by really thanking our event organizer, Carol Sundstrom, and Mr. Hunt, Greg Hunt, who have spent a lot of time over the last number of years to help keep this going and organize the event. Now, this past spring, Ms. Sundstrom contacted us and said, hey, we'd really like to block Main Street because of these extra activities. And as we went through the conversation, it really came down to we'd like to have the parking spaces in front of the band shell, just a half a block blocked off so that the vendors can be out in that area, because they actually have some requests from additional vendors for those evenings. And so we went to the DDA, we put this out in front of them. They were 100% in support of that activity. It's not actually blocking the street, because that was my question, was, okay, if you block only half the street, then if someone comes down, they're going to get stuck and they're not going to be able to turn around. They said, well, we don't need the whole block, so I think it's just those parking spaces. The one nuance in it is that we do have one handicap spot in that area, and what we plan to do is, during the event, we're going to have a temporary sign constructed and set out for one of the spots on the side. So that spot will be available for handicap. So as part of our policy, that if any right-of-way is impacted, city council needs to make an approval for that to happen.
Any questions?
Well, I got issues with the blocking the parking.
Okay?
Just primarily, one, the handicap one, like you already brought up. If you're gonna be putting a temporary sign, you're also gonna be changing the curb in that area to allow access up onto the sidewalk from that spot, because you'd have to put another curb cut in. So right now, that you couldn't, if you put it anywhere, you couldn't access the sidewalk from that spot without going back into the road, like you
Yeah.
can with the current.
We weren't typically thinking of somebody actually exiting the car, because a lot of people sit in their vehicle and
Right.
watch, and so we wanted to make that access available. We still have the parking or the handicap. I believe we have another one over on this end. Don't we? We have another one on this side of the block?
I don't believe so.
We don't? Okay.
The other issue is that there are a lot of people who do like to go down there and either stay in their car because they want to, or because they have to for mobility issues. You're now reducing where they can park, so they're not gonna be able to go there in their residence. Public money is going into this, now you're restricting public access for vendors. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't approve of that.
Well, one clarification, I mean, this has not been run on public money for the last number of years. I mean, when we started with grant for about 3 years, first 3 years. After that, this is strictly run on donation.
Okay, then I
You know,
was wrong, I
that's-
was wrong about that.
Yeah, that's
I still-
just so that,
I
I
still
mean-
don't like the restricting of public access to that right in front, where people would want to be closer to here, be easier to hear. But I was wrong about the public money. I thought we still put money into that program.
The DDA does make a contribution, so that is public money from the people in their district. So it's kind of
Okay.
it's a combination, so it's not 100%.
But the committee that does this is recommending this?
Yes. Yes, they're recommending it, and one of the reasons they're recommending it is because when we put the vendors on the side, in the side area, their feeling is that the people are not getting up and utilizing them during the show because they're afraid of having that activity on the side, whereas if they're standing behind, it might get used more. That was just their idea.
They'd be more centrally located.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it because I don't organize it, so, you know, I guess I have to take their word on it, and they're the ones that put the time into it.
Ray, could we maybe leave the handicap spot? And just give them the other 2 spots?
Yeah, I mean, we can do whatever is suggested by the council.
Was there 5 spots there? or
3.
3, plus the handicap?
3 including the handicap, but usually 4 cars can park there because there's such a big space at the end, at the bump out.
We can try it.
I would think that'd be difficult with the angled parking because would almost have to be an all or none kind of a situation. I don't know, I think that would be, because it's angled. That's just my thought.
Well, my thought would be block off the whole street, period. Because invariably, you go there, and whatever act is on, there's somebody that go tooling through with a loud muffler
Yep.
on a truck.
Or a
It's very,
motorbike.
very distracting.
When there's somebody there, it's busy. It's a busy spot to be, going through with a vehicle.
Yeah.
they're getting
People crossing both sides.
Yeah.
They're getting large crowds now.
Yeah, well,
And
a
some
lot
of
of
them-
it depends on the weather.
Depends on the weather.
And I mean, some of these bands attract more people. There are a couple of nights, there was a mob down there.
Yeah.
Kept over here. Designate one over here, 2 or 3.
Could.
And I don't know how many vendors they come, so like he said, it's probably all or nothing, because they must know what room, and I want more vendors to come in, that'll even bring more people to come if they can sit there and get, more food or whatever.
Yeah, they're not gonna have multiple vendors of the same kind, so I think the hot dog cart was one that was gonna come down. Of course, the music boosters, they'll have their booth. I assume they'll have their booth again, with ice cream and
Popcorn.
and I think the popcorn, and so there might only be a couple more, but they just thought with there's cart and stuff, that would be a good spot for it. I mean, they might be able to fit it in with just a couple spots, but
I just wonder on the safety of that anyway, because now you're still having a vehicle turn in right next to the vendor.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's gotta be an all or nothing.
Yeah.
So, it's your pleasure as to,
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that the application be approved.
Support.
Mr. Brew, Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
No,
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Move on to license agreement with Iron Mountain Iron Mine Billboard. Mr. Anderson?
yeah, we have a request, we have a license agreement currently with the Iron Mountain Iron Mine for a sign that's on city property. It's something we dealt with a number of years ago. And they came in this year and would like to replace that sign with a standard billboard as an 8x24. Went through the zoning first, and the zoning looks fine as far as they meet the setbacks and the spacing requirements. The power line is right there, so we went through and looked at placement relative to, they need to stay within, outside of 10 feet physical distance from a line or a pole or transformer, which they're able to do. So now the question is there are actually two locations that they're proposing. The preferred location is to actually come westbound to be in front of the power lines, which there's a sketch showing both the sign and the location. If that is not a good location, they could use the current location. But remember now, the current sign is only 5 foot by 6 foot. It's a small sign.
So these are new ones, not,
This would be, they're gonna take down the 5x6 sign and put that in its place. But if you look at the map, the sign is currently located it's right on the property line, so they would have to go from the front of the current sign back the 24 feet. So that's probably one of the reasons. I mean, you guys, why don't you come up and you can, state your case. Come on up, Dean. Yeah, go ahead, however you want to do it, you're the petitioner.
And just request for a billboard placement. In front of the power line, we have an area that would fit. I just talked to Chuck from Mountain Engineering, asked him if we had that billboard angled the way it is now, will it fit in the space meeting the city's requirements? And he said, yes, it will. So, because it has to have the property line, from your property line back, and the space that was working with was 25 feet. You have to have a 10-foot setback from the power line. So he said, yes, if it's angled, which it is, at about a 25-degree angle, it shortens your depth, gives you that 10-foot space, so that it's 24 feet below the angle. Follow me? Okay.
yeah.
And then another thing about that.
Basically, that sign would be the same size as the two there are there going up
The size that the ones that are there now, yes.
going up by the city hall there, going up to the mountain.
Yes, yes. One of those, not that size, no. It would just be a basic 8 foot high by 20 foot wide.
Oh, 8 high, 24 wide.
Yeah,
Oh,
currently I have 8 by 8.
Is it 8 by 8?
Extend the 8 by 8. It's 2 foot, 2 foot, 2 foot with 2 foot spacing. And then we have 8 foot, 3 banners, 3 8-foot banners. And that's what we have right now. So it takes up an 8 by 8 area, but we're just going to go 8 feet behind the sidewalk. We can currently put it where it's at, a better location in front of the, because if we go from the city property back the power pole would shade, shadow part of the sign. Billboard.
You probably have to do some brushing too, because you gotta go back.
Yes.
Yeah, that sign is like right on the property line, the way that our property line goes
Right.
back, yeah.
Right.
No, I have no problem with it, if it meets all the requirements. And hopefully it'll bring in more customers, which brings in more people to the city.
Oh, yeah, it'll be-
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't
I
have a
agree.
problem with it either.
I don't have a problem with it either. Bring more people in, that's what we want.
So the current lease agreement, it does have, we're gonna have to rewrite that grant, you know, with the new, because we have the description in the lease agreement. So we'll put the description in when we come. When we deal with location, if you're using Chuck up at Mountain, yeah, if we could get a good site map, then I can put that in with the,
So you
yeah,
can use a plumb bob.
sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, old school.
Yeah.
All right. So then, and then in paragraph 2, the current agreement is $600 a year, and they've been paying $50 a month for that.
It's receivable 4 months out of the years.
Is that per sign or just for both of them?
That's per sign, you know, so they're gonna remove, you're gonna remove the other sign, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so there'll
That
still
sign
only
will
be,
removed because it
there'll be
was
one
covered-
sign?
it'll cover the other sign, just the better location was in front of the poles instead of behind the poles, because adding on at 8 feet, if you come around the corner, it'll put you the poles shadowing part of the sign. And we couldn't move forward, we couldn't move it further out, but then you're off the city property, then we're into state, which is their setback, but then we have to deal with both city and state. We'd rather not deal with the state.
Yeah.
But now, that's a, well, that's a,
So if the council's okay with leaving it at 600, or because of the size change, they wanna deal with an increase?
I'm good with leaving it.
I'm good at leaving it.
I am too.
Okay?
And primary location, primary request location, that's fine.
Got another thing?
Okay, next question. Does council have anything to do with state with state signs they put out? Well, the issue is that the state had just put a sign in front of the iron mine, and I already had comments about it. They said, we came by your iron mine, and the first comment was, well, we're looking at John, we didn't realize there's a detour going on for US 8, so they put the big detour sign. And so the next question was, I didn't see the detour sign, I was looking at Big John, and some people looked at detour sign and didn't see Big John, so it's not good business for either one of us to have the sign right in front of Big John that says detour. And the next question was, well, I see you guys are opening your tours, or your tours are gonna start on the 28th of this. I said, no, the detour is starting on the 28th of We're opening on the 24th.
And that's kind of far down. I'm surprised they went with that far down.
Well, they have
I said,
a,
well, the request would be to move it closer, but I didn't know the council had anything to do with that, so I'm going
No.
like, wait a minute.
No, we
If you
don't.
take a ride down, and you turn around and take a look, it's like, wait a minute, you're gonna look at the detour site, or you look at Big John? I mean, it's bad for both the state and us. So, because you're gonna look at Big John and not see the detours for US 8, or you're gonna look at the detour sign and not, vice versa. Or you're gonna say, oh, mine opens up at the 28th for tours. No, it's detours.
Could you send a request into Crystal Falls and see if they'll do it?
I can talk to Crystal Falls, they follow a sign standard.
I mean,
We're setting those up, it's pretty detailed.
I seen it.
For how
They
far.
I realize.
And I wondered to
Maybe we
myself,
send an
first of
email.
all, why would they put it that far down?
Yeah, I'm going like, wait a minute, the Highway 8 starts all the way up here by Crystal, but I figured you'd come up the corner, that they came right around the corner, right where, anywhere further than the mine.
Where it is, yeah.
We don't really have any say, but we'll see if we can
Right,
get
I didn't
Crystal
know what you had to
Falls.
say, but I don't know who makes the request. But we were just talking about it, and I said, well, I'll address the board, maybe somebody knows, because it's within the city, so hey,
Ray will try to-
better for the business of the
Right.
city, better for the business of the city of Iron Mine, better the business of the state, better for the business of people being.
Not driving by and say, well, so well, let's not
People being in
go.
that field say your tours are starting May 28th, no, we're opening the 24th, don't lose 4 days.
I wouldn't be too hopeful something will happen, because the state's they're gonna do their thing, but we'll try. We'll see what we can do.
Just tell the city of the truck, they can pull right ahead, no problem. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that the council approve a license agreement with the Iron Mountain Iron Mine for a new 8-foot by 24-foot billboard, and that the existing current sign be removed.
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. We'll move on to approval, Communications Department, mapping updates and organizations.
Yeah, this particular request, again, we talked about this during the budget hearing. You know, we're trying to get the cable maps, the communication maps, consistent with all of our other mapping in our GIS system. Been working with CCI and Empower to, how much it would cost to do that. Between the two of them, it's $15,220. I'd like to move forward in this budget year because we actually had monies that we aren't expending for the sweep. We're not going to be getting to that before July 1st, and we had like $37,000 in there, and we're not going to spend. So we'd be able to still save money in the fund and get this particular issue taken care of.
So this is converting them from CCI's current format to Empower's?
Well, this is converting it to a format like a basic AutoCAD that we can then put into Empower.
Right, well, Empower.
Yeah.
From CCI's format to what Empower can
Yeah,
use?
their format is so specific that they can't get it into the system. So they actually have to convert what they normally do into the more generalized AutoCAD.
Any other questions? If not, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion that CCI and Empower be approved to provide GIS mapping for the communication system for a price not to exceed $15,220.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Anyone wishing to address the council on any item of interest shall do so now at the podium. We'll move on to council comments. Scott?
I just have one question. We are going over budgets, and we know that we're slim in some departments. You know, and I hate to say this, but our roads are not looking good for us, but I'm also looking at Valley View. Would it be better for us if we cannot afford to pave it, to gravel it?
Or crush it.
Crush and gravel? Because we have our own gravel pit where we can, you know, have all that done. I mean, we're losing so much in patching that every single year. As soon as 2 or 3 cars go over it, it's gone.
Yeah, we actually have the same issue up on the north end of Purning Lane.
Yeah.
I took a ride before the council meeting and took a ride through that loop, and I mean, and Summit is bad as well, so I mean,
So I'm sure I've heard from a lot of the residents on those stretches.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why can't we gravel? You know, it's easier to grade that than it is to keep going back and patching and paying for that.
yeah, we'd have to send a crusher up through there, you know, to do it, so it's still an expense. I can investigate it and give you an idea of cost. It's not free, you know.
No, I know that's
Obviously, we
not
have
gonna be
do that.
free, but it's, you know, and also looking at whatever it's gonna cost, the $400-some thousand to repave it. I just don't think we have that right now, but some type of temporary.
What about like a super patch?
This super patch is not gonna work on Valley View.
No.
It's just, the Valley View is completely gone. I mean, it would be better if you just crushed it and turned the tailings back into a road. I mean, and ran a packer across it. If you keep upgrading it, it's gonna be better than what it is. And I think over by Purny is the same exact thing. It's been a while, been up by Summit, but I'm sure that is equally as bad. I know over by Purny, it's smoother to drive in the ditch than it is on the road, for sure.
That's all I got.
Brett?
Attached to that, just so everybody out there knows, MDOT Category B road applications, 2.9 million was available for grant money, and only 110,000 was given out in the Upper Peninsula. That's all I have.
Lee?
Well, I see that everybody survived the rummage sale, citywide rummage sale. No incidents that the police were called to, right, Ethan? Which is good. Sometimes you wonder with kids running all over and the streets narrow, cars parked on both sides, but thank God Friday was a good day, and I think most of the business was done on Friday, and Saturday the rain held off, and I think pretty much same as last year. Don't forget the Memorial Day Parade. I believe it starts at 10:30. The weather extended weather looks good for it. And for what it's worth, it's National Public Works Week, and that's all I have.
Jeremy?
I was gonna mention the garage sales too, but they already took care of that, so I got nothing.
I hope everybody has a safe and happy Memorial Day weekend. Grant?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Anderson?
I have nothing tonight.
Trish? All right. Do I have a motion to
I'll
adjourn?
make a motion to adjourn.
Meeting adjourned.
Roll call?
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Benigini?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
I'm so used to the school board.